Okay, so the last video for 8.3 is going to be looking at independent samples. I have two examples because the way you plug it into your calculator is a little different for each. For all the beginning stuff for independent samples, that's all the same. The process is going to be the same. Your problems are going to look very similar. At least your answers are going to look very similar. You still need your null and alternate, which are going to be very much the same as for the dependent samples. Alpha level p-value. The way you calculate the p-value is a little different, and your conclusion should read almost exactly the same. Rules the same. P-value less than or equal to alpha, we reject a null. P-value greater than alpha, we fail to reject a null. Reject a null means that we are going to side with the alternative. Fail to reject null means we're going to side with the null. Okay. In our calculator, we're going to use a two-sample t-test. There's the function you're going to go to for finding the p-value. Okay, so here's our first example. A self-teaching online course was being compared to the traditional in-class method of learning. At the end of the year, the following exam grades were compared. One class took the class online, and the other had class with a teacher each day. The same material was taught in both courses over the same time period. Test to see if there was a difference between the two methods of teaching. Be 99% confident. So again, start off the same way. We need our null and alternate. So I have mu of online equals mu traditional. I just abbreviated them both a little bit. And all it wants to know is there a difference. So you're not saying one's greater than the other. Just the difference means not equal to. So I have mu online not equal to mu traditional. We're 99% confident, so our alpha level is 0.01. And now we have to go to our p-value. So I'm going to exit out of here and go to my calculator real quick. And just like before, we need to enter those lists. In this case, they gave us two lists of data. So I have mine entered into L1 and L2. And this time, these are not corresponding. I mean, you can even see the lists are not equal size. Okay, we have more numbers in our traditional class than the online class, which is fine. We are not doing the subtraction. If you do the L1 minus L2, you'll actually get an error because there are numbers that don't have another value to be subtracted from or subtracted to. So we just have our list in the L1, L2, and we do not have to do the subtraction. We can go right to stat, to test, and I said a two-sample t-test, so number 4. Now, it gave us our list. We have them in the L1, L2, so we need to make sure data is highlighted. And this is very simple. You don't need to plug in a value for the null. You can just tell it the list. We have L1, L2. Frequencies leave them as either frequencies leave them as either 1 or blank. Our not equal to is highlighted, which is what we want, and that's in our alternative. The pooled, this is new, and this is if there's two different ways of calculating the standard deviation. Now, we are not getting that detailed about it, so every time, make sure pooled is highlighted no. Okay, so we have no be highlighted. Go down to calculate. And it gives us a lot of information. You can actually scroll down and it tells us our sample size, our standard deviation for both lists. We are average for both lists. The important value here is the p-value. 0.97, we'll round that to 0.977 is our p-value. Okay, so now let's go back to our PowerPoint. We had our null and alternate, our alpha level. Now we have a p-value of 0.977. So obviously our p-value is greater. So since our p-value is greater than our alpha level, we fail to reject the null. Grades for online and traditional are the same, no difference. Okay, so I kind of, maybe if you have more space, write a little nicer than that. But main point is fail to reject. So we sided with the null, so we have it being equal to each other. There's no difference between online and traditional. Take whichever one you want, and you should do equally as well. Okay, now that was if the data they give us are in two lists of data. They gave us a list of online, a list of traditional. They could give us summary statistics, and that's the next example. Is there a difference in IQ compared to what county of Pennsylvania you live in? A sample of 84 individuals from Lancaster County was taken, and they had a mean of 118. Another sample of 103 was taken from Delaware County with a mean of 123. It is found that the sample standard deviations for the IQ of Lancaster County is 25 and for Delaware County is 12. Be 95% confident. So again, we just want to test to see if there is a difference between the two. So there's our null and alternate. I have mu of Lancaster equals mu of Delaware. For the alternative, just a difference, so I have not equal to as my symbol. Okay, so there's my null and alternate. 95% confident, so our alpha level is 0.05. Now, it's very important for this one. The numbers are kind of mixed all over the place, so make sure you have the correct values plugged in where. So you might even want to highlight, circle, somehow pick out the numbers. We know for Lancaster County, we have an 84 is our N, 118 is our average, and 25 is the standard deviation. For Delaware County, we have 103 for the N, 123 is our average, and 12 is the standard deviation. So now if I go to my calculator, we're still doing a 2-sample t-test, but there's no list to plug in. So I'm going to go to 2-sample t-test. This time I'm going to have stats highlighted. And this is why it's important to make sure you list those values. Know what numbers go with which data set. It has to give you the mean, standard deviation, and sample size for one set, and then the mean, standard deviation, and the sample size for the other set. So my first set was Lancaster County. This had an average of 118, a standard deviation of 25, and a sample size of 84. For the second one, for the average, we have 123 for Delaware County. Standard deviation was 12, and the sample size was 103. Again, we were not equal to, so that's not stay highlighted. Pooled is still going to be no. Go down to calculate. 0.095 is our p-value. Okay, we don't need to worry about anything else. Again, it gives us a good amount of information. DF stands for degrees of freedom, which we're not going to worry about. But 0.095, going back to our PowerPoint now, we have 0.095 as our p-value. Again, greater than our alpha level. Since our p-value is greater than our alpha level, we fail to reject a null. This means there is no difference between the IQ of Lancaster and Delaware County residents. They are equally as smart. Okay, so there is the last bit of 8.3, the 2-sample test. Okay, or just remember, when they're independent, you need to make sure you are looking to see if they give you lists of data or if they give you the summary statistics. Probably one of the more difficult parts of 8.3 is deciding, is it dependent or independent? So make sure you read the problem carefully and decide which method you are going to use.